Now that we have our textures imported into the project, we're going to paint the terrain. As stated, you can use your textures or the ones Unity provides. It would make it more unique if you use your own. So I'm going to do that. So the first thing we want to do is to lay the foundation, the basic base texture onto our terrain. So we come over into our paint brush, add texture, and select. And what happens is all textures within your asset folder will be displayed. So you'll want to find your specific designs, unless you're using what was here for Unity. So I'm going to use my base sand dune texture. That's something that you'll probably find in the ocean. How's that sound? So I double click on it, or you click once, select, and I'm going to leave the size at 15 here for the repeats per the texture. So let's add, and it just slams it right onto the whole island here. It looks pretty big. I mean, if you were walking around, that looks pretty big. So let's select our third person, zoom in, and you see that's some very large sand dunes there. So we're going to edit that particular texture, and we can show you how to fix that. So you select the texture, edit texture, and change the repeats per, and the repeats need to go in increments that make sense, usually 32, 64, 128, etc., etc. I'm going to try 128. I know that's huge, but let's just see what happens. And then take a look at this without it being so blue. That looks a little bit better. Oh no, looks even worse. Looks larger. So maybe we need to go the opposite way. I'm going to go 5 just because it sounds like a good round number. And I'm going to leave it at that. So next I want to take and add some other textures to this island. You know, not everything is filled with sand. So what I'm going to do is add more textures in here so I can start painting. So once again, edit texture, click add, select add, and find the textures that you're going to start adding. You'll have to do this one at a time. So why don't you go ahead and bring yours in, and when I bring all mine in that I want to use to paint, we'll meet up again. So I'm back, and I'm going to start painting this terrain. So we have our basic sand added to the terrain here, and then I'm going to add a little bit here onto the beachy area of the sand that has some shells in it. So I go ahead and I'm going to grab a little brush. I'm going to use a brush that has a feather on the end, and that's very, very large brush. So I'm going to bring the size down so I have more control as to where it goes. And also I'm going to bring the opacity down because I don't want to just slam it on there. I want to look like, you know, make it look like it blends in to the area. So I just paint just a little bit here, and we'll zoom in and take a look and see if that's the look we want. As you can see, you can still see underneath the sand below it. So it looks like the opacity is pretty good here. I'm just going to go and add this to a few other places, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm going to repeat this process with what I'm going to use as some of my landscaping, and that is with the wood textures. So most people, as they're building their island, would use rock or grass or rock and grass or mud or wet sand or things like that. But you know, I got to be a little different. So the first thing I want to do is make sure it blends in, and since we have pink on the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and grab the pink wood here and do the same thing. Use the opacity strength and the brush size and come along towards the edge. I think that's a little too strong right there, so I'm going to Control Z and go out of there and bring down the opacity even more and start painting just as you did before. So I'm going to go ahead and work on this and come back in just a moment. So I added this texture pretty much everywhere where there was no shells and sand. And as I zoom in, I don't like the look of it. So once again, I'm going to go into the Edit Texture, and change the repeats and see what happens and how it looks. It's looking a little better, but it almost seems as if it's stretched too much. And the sand is also showing through it, so I may need to change the opacity on the next set of brushes that I'm going to do. So I'm going to change the repeat for the Y to go even lower, and let's see what happens. That looks a little better. I'm kind of liking that one. And I'm thinking that looks a little better. So 5 and 3. Apply. So next, I'm going to start painting on top of that. As the mountains rise, you know, the terrain usually changes. So I'm going to move over into the red, and since we had a 5 and a 3, I might as well change the red to a 5 repeat on the x-axis and a 3 repeat on the y-axis and apply. I'm going to go ahead and keep the same brush but bring the opacity up a little bit so not too much comes out, and then start painting some of the bottoms here. I might need to change my brush size a little. Take that out and bring, oh, maybe I'll do some right here, and go ahead and just paint along and make sure everything just blends together. We'll be right back. One thing I love about painting a terrain is nature itself does not have this set thing that this level is one color and this level is the next color. It's kind of a variance of everything. So as you paint, you know, you don't have to be a perfect designer or painter. You're just painting an environment which your game is running around in. So it doesn't have to be exact. So I'm heading for the next set here. I'm going to go ahead and edit the same thing, select apply, and add it to the very top of all the mountains. So well, not all of them, because they're all not really high, so you don't want to make it, you know, everything the same. And just splash it on a few places, so gives it some differences. And that's about it on painting a texture. So go ahead, go have some fun, work with the repeats per, work with the opacity, the strength of how much you paint, and just play. Have fun.